Welcome to episode 2 of Sanur Sessions. In this video, we check out what's going on in Sanur, provide updates on what's happening, events, news items, property, and also what things are like outside of Bali, but still within Indonesia. Let's get to it. First up is news about Ace Hardware. Ace Hardware is a hardware chain that you might have come across in your travels in Bali. They sell all sorts of stuff, and some of these stores are so massive, multiple stories. They're selling hardware, they're selling homewares, they're selling things like safes, they're selling all sorts of weird and wonderful electronic items, electrical items, everything you can want, you can get at the Ace Hardware in Bali, but they're shutting down after 29 years of operation. Now, I've read on the internet that maybe it's because their contract with the head company, Ace Hardware, I think, which is from America, is coming to an end. And if that's happening, there's speculation that they may not be closing the stores and that they may just be rebranding. We don't know yet, well, I don't know yet, but it'll be interesting to see what they call themselves in the future. And we certainly hope they don't close down, because all of those crispo items that you see around the place, are an important part of living in Indonesia. So yep, they're closing down. It'll be interesting to see what comes next. Next up is news about Aussie Orange, a bar down on Jalan Pantai Sindu. Now, those of you who know more about it than me are welcome to contribute in the comments below. But what I've heard is that Aussie Orange is now closed. I've been past a couple of times when it should have been open and it's been closed. And I've heard that the owner might be returning back to Australia and trying to sell the store, which is unfortunate because it's a favourite of a lot of people. If you've got any information about that, put it in the comments below. But just know, if you're planning to go there anytime soon, it's probably not going to be open. The next piece of news is for avocado lovers. A couple of weeks ago, or maybe 3 weeks ago now, a new place opened called Avocado Lovers. It's down near Stuja di Pantai, down Jalan Kusumasari, at the end on the beach path, right on the corner there. They're selling up a range of avocado drinks. So avocado, which has been mashed up into a juice and mixed with chocolate and sugar as a sweet avocado drink. And I know that that's weird for many people from outside of Asia, but in Asia, sweet avocado is all the rage, and I actually enjoy it myself. It's not weird. It has a really interesting flavour, a bit nutty, but also sweetened with a lot of sugar, and a really interesting mouthfeel as well. They also do mango drinks, and I think they had strawberry or some other thing down there. The mango with cream sounded like an interesting little drink as well. They've got bowls. That's somewhere that you might want to check out. It's air conditioned. If you're down on the beach path and you want to try something new, try Avocado Lovers out. It's pretty good. I've been there myself. Okay, let's move into what's on in Sanur. I just want to talk about movies in Sanur first. With a new Icon Mall that's opened, they have an IMAX cinema there. And the IMAX is a really interesting proposition now for people who are visiting Sanur. Before, we didn't have anywhere to go to the movies. We had to go to Denpasar or Kuta or something like that. But they've got the cinema there now. And Susan recently visited and she said the cinema was really, really good. The price starts at about 40,000, ranges up to over 100,000, depending on the movie, the day of the week, the session that you're going to, and the seats that you get. Some of these sessions are like these premium ones where you get a lounge and you can order food and that sort of thing. But movies in Sanur and in Bali and in Indonesia in general are not dubbed. So they're actually in the original English language, if they're an English language film, just with subtitles. So as an English language speaker, it's very easy for us to go into these movies and watch them as they were meant to be. They're not weird. I have heard that some people are a little bit afraid that maybe they're dubbed and it means it's very difficult to watch, but they're not, they're in English. And it's a really cheap way to see some of the latest blockbuster movies. For example, Transformers is coming on soon, and I think they're charging 55,000 to go and see it. Whereas, in some Western countries, we're probably looking at 300,000. Get yourself down to the movies if you're interested in something a little bit different while you're in Sanur. You don't want to be lying on the beach all day or you're getting a bit hot. nick across and see a movie. You might enjoy yourself. The next event that I wanted to talk about that I've got for you is a really interesting one. It's here on my phone. I'll put a copy of the poster on the screen. It's called Snake Day. And there's a guy called Ron Lilly who's the founder of Bali Snake Patrol, and he's doing a class on sort of teaching people about snakes. Should you be afraid of them? What to look out for, why snakes do certain things, why they act a certain way. And it's sort of like an educational experience for people who want to learn a little bit more about snakes while they're in Bali. You can bring your kids along if they're over the age of 15, and attendance is by donation only. It's on the 15th of September, and I'll put the, there's a WhatsApp number on the screen there. You just need to register on that WhatsApp number and give your donation. I guess when you arrive, minimum donation 100,000, but I mean, really, we're not talking about much money. Ron will tell you about what to do if you were bitten by a snake and so forth. And you will get to see some snakes and hopefully maybe even touch them. So yeah, Ron Lilly putting on a good snake day there. Maybe it's something you want to check out while you're in Bali. Next up, Indonesia beyond Bali. Outside of Bali, Indonesia is incredible, and it's something that we don't really hear a lot about. We hear a lot of negative things about Indonesia, about volcanoes, earthquakes, drugs, live exports, or West Papua. We hear a lot of negative things about Indonesia, but we don't really hear too much about what it's like to visit some of these places, what the people are like, what the food's like, what the scenery's like. And I think in this segment, I really want to expand your knowledge about what Indonesia is like outside of Bali. The first place we're going to explore is Labuan Bajo. Labuan Bajo is a town on the west side of the island of Flores. Flores is 3 islands across from Bali. So it goes Bali, so Java, Bali, Lombok, Sumbawa, Flores. Flores is an incredible island. The main things that people go to Flores for and Labuan Bajo is for diving, snorkeling, visiting Komodo Island, which is really nearby, where you can see Komodo dragons in real life. Like they're right there in the sand or in the bush. They're hunting wild deer and all this sort of stuff. And you can go traipsing around the island and actually encounter these things in the wild. I mean, you've got to have your wits about you, and you will take a guide, and the guide takes these big sticks just in case there's any dramas, because you don't want to get bitten by one of those. But it's a fascinating experience to go and see these Komodo dragons in the wild. It's one of the unique things in the world to do. You've got to go and do that if you're in Labuan Bajo. But also the diving around Labuan Bajo and the snorkeling is phenomenal. I went there once and saw about 12 manta rays, all just like doing these ones all around. Like they are huge, like as big as a car, and they're floating around under the ocean there doing their things, and you're just snorkeling above them, and it is phenomenal. You can hire a boat and a driver from the dock there to take you around. You don't need to go on a formal tour, although there are formal tours as well. To get to Komodo, same thing, you can hire a boat and a driver and he'll take you across there. There are national park entry fees to these places which you'll need to pay, and that changes from time to time. But it's a stunning part of the world, like stunning. It's one of my favourite parts of the world. It's phenomenal. Aside from that, Labuan Bajo is the hopping off point for overland trips across the island of Flores. Now you can make a trip from Flores to the other side to somewhere like Maumere, where there are also flights back to Bali from. And you can get a car and a driver for 5 nights, and he'll take you across the island day by day. And there are places you can stay along the way, hotels and things, and he will show you a fantastic time. There are things like interesting rice fields, hot springs. You can go and stay in a nunnery. It's amazing. You can climb. It's not even really a big volcano, but you can go up a volcano, which is sort of like a bit of a hill, and it's got 3 different coloured lakes on it. It's called Kelimutu. Incredible. And along the way, there are lots of stopping off points. You'll see little kids running around, and it's phenomenal. A really amazing adventure. It's not too adventurous. You don't have to be a backpacker style to do it. There are proper hotels along the way, and it's just a fantastic opportunity to see a part of Indonesia that you may never have seen. This isn't Indonesia unless we talk about religion. The religion of the island of Flores is predominantly Catholic. They are predominantly Catholic people, which is a really interesting counterbalance to the Hindus that we see in Bali, the Muslims that we see in most of Java. It's a really, really interesting cultural blend there. Highly recommend going to Flores. The stepping off point is Labuan Bajo. If you've got any questions about the place, leave a comment. I might be able to answer them. But truly, it's an amazing place to go and a must visit. If you're already in Bali and you might want to sort of just tack on an extra 5 days, Labuan Bajo, easy as, direct flights from Bali, from the domestic terminal. It's really simple. It might sound hard, but it's not. People are so friendly, and if you get stuck, they'll help you out. One last thing about Labuan Bajo is the hotels there these days are unbelievable. All the big chains have gone there. There's 5 stars. It used to be 10 to 20 years ago that you were staying in more homestays and lower standard places that were maybe costing you 20 bucks a night. Now you've got the full range, from cheap to expensive. So whatever your budget is and whatever your style of travel is, it's there. The last thing about Labuan Bajo is that it's a stepping off point for live on board tours. And what these are is that you can book in advance a boat that will take you around all the local islands on a 3-night journey. Live on board the boat, and you'll go fishing, you'll do snorkeling, explore islands, and just enjoy yourself sailing around. That's a really good thing that they offer out of Labuan Bajo as well. Now let's talk about Indonesian food, one of my favorite subjects. Today we're going to talk about bakso. Bakso is meatballs in Indonesia. So bakso is a really common dish throughout all of Indonesia. It's super tasty. The meatballs are, like a super ball. When you were a kid, you had a super ball about that size and you bounce them and they'd bounce all over the place. Well, that's sort of the texture of a bakso. It's not a meatball like we might have an Italian meatball with ground pork and beef with a lot of fat in it. These things are ground up beef or chicken or whatever meat they put in there, ground up and mixed with a flour and a few herbs and spices, and then shaped into a ball. And it's like a paste. So it's ground so fine that there is no texture to it. It's like a one-dimensional texture, like a super ball. And when you bite into it, it's springy and chewy. It's not chewy, it's springy. It's got a bounciness to it. It's really, really delicious. And it's not too weird. Like, it's not like got guts or anything in it. And they usually put that in a clear broth with noodles and maybe a bit of tofu. It depends on the variation. And that clear broth is seasoned with pepper, salt, maybe a bit of MSG. It's a really tasty, flavoursome broth. And that broth sometimes is made from a beef base, sometimes with a chicken base. It depends on who's making it and the regional variation you're getting. The bakso is normally sold from a gerobak. Those carts that they push around? That's a gerobak. And they'll normally sell it there, or they might sell it from a kaki lima, one of those stationary sort of warungs that you see in a market or something like that. The pedagang, the seller, will normally have his stall set up in one of those gerobaks that is wheeled from his house to that location, and he'll serve it up there with the broth and the noodles and that sort of stuff. Freshly cooked, beautiful, usually 20,000, 15,000, 10,000, depends on where you're getting it from. It's usually very cheap, and it's a standard dish right across Indonesia, and Indonesians will eat that any time of day. It's a great snack to have just when you're feeling a little bit peckish, I guess. Overall though, that broth doesn't overpower the meatballs. The meatballs are the star of the dish, so you might have 5 of those meatballs in there, and they're usually small, but you can get the jumbo version, which I'm not a big fan of, but those small ones, beautiful. You can try it out at the Sanur night market. I know they've got bakso ayam down there and bakso sapi. Ayam is chicken, sapi is beef. They've got both versions down there. Very normal. You can go and try it out down there. I don't know how much it costs. Probably costs 20,000, I'd say. Give that a go down at the Sanur night market. Bakso is a great dish, and it's a good starter dish for Indonesian food that you might not see in the cafes. Yeah, one of the ones that's a little bit outside of the standard tourist fare. Now we're going on to searching for property in Bali. Susan and I are searching for property in Bali. I'd prefer to buy a block of land and build my own place, and that's the sort of journey we're on at the moment. But we're also open to finding a property that's already built and buying that. Now there's two ways you can buy property really in Indonesia. You can buy it freehold, that means you own all the rights, and only Indonesians can do that with a few little exceptions. Or there is leasehold, which is perhaps a 30-year lease where you own the right to that land for 30 years, and after the 30 years the rights go back to the Indonesian landholder. So because I'm on the lookout myself, I come across a lot of properties, and I thought it'd be a good idea to sort of highlight to you guys what's available out there in Sanur and what the prices are, where the locations are, what you can get for your money, just so you might have a think about, hey, I wouldn't mind going and checking it out myself. Maybe you want to come and live in Sanur one day. So this is where the market is at the moment. I get my information from a range of different websites and forums on Facebook. The two properties I'm going to sort of show or highlight to you today are from Bali Moves. Bali Moves is a real estate agent in Sanur, which I trust. And you can't trust everyone in Bali, but I do trust Bali Moves. They've got a good reputation and they're quite professional. So that's why I'm going to show you these ones. So the first place is a 2-bedroom rustic villa, 12 minutes motorbike ride from the beach. So we're talking west side of the bypass for 2 billion rupiah. 2 bedrooms, land size is 200 square meters, and 200 square meters, if you're not really familiar, is about the right size of a place that most people are going to want. Most people want about 200 square meters, but if you're on the east side of the bypass closer to the beach, 200 square meters is incredibly expensive because land is so restricted on that side. There is not much available. 200 square meters is luxury over that side. On the west side, you can get 200 square meters and it's going to cost you 2 billion. The sort of place we're looking at here is a bit rustic. It's got an open air sort of living area, nice, beautiful, nice pool, nice bedroom, well designed. I could see myself living in a place like that. And if you got a place for, this lease goes until 2048. If you got a place like that, you'd have time to do some modifications of your own. If you wanted to close in some of the walls or redo something, you've got the scope to do it as well. Maybe put in a few extra $1,000s to renovate. And that's sort of what you do in Bali. You find a place that's 80% what you want and you make the other modifications yourself. You're not always going to get a perfect place. It might look a bit old and daggy, so you're going to spruce it up and renovate it. Or it might be that it isn't air conditioned in the living area. So all right, you're going to put some walls in and whack some air conditioners in. That's the sort of stuff that we all do when we come here. It's never going to be perfect, but you can make it your place by doing a few modifications. So that place is quite nice, I think. And for 2 billion, I mean, it's not a lot of money really when you've got it for so long. The thing is, at the end of that time, your 2 billion is gone. The other thing about these long-term leases is that you can on-sell them. So say if you lived there for 15 years and you've got maybe 10 years left, you can sell the remainder of that lease. You may not get as much as you initially paid for it because you've only got 10 years left now, but at least you get something. So if all your plans fell apart and you said, I've got to get rid of this place, it is still an asset, even though it's on that steady decline down to zero. So the next place we're looking at as a bit of a comparison is beachside, so east side of the bypass. To give you an idea of what you get for your money on that side. It's a 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom place with only 70 square meters of land and a tiny little pool. It's a small little, I wouldn't even call it a villa, they call it a villa, but it's a small little apartment if you like, tiny, but it might be enough for you, and it depends what you want. If you want a big garden, well, you're not in luck here, but you are close to the action. This is within walking distance of the beach and all the shops. It's a lease for 20 years. You have a little kitchenette there. You've got your 1-bedroom, you've got a lounge room, and that's it really. And look, for most people, that's enough. For me, it's enough actually. I mean, I don't need a massive property either, but it just goes to show that if you want to be east side of the bypass, you're going to pay a lot more for what you get. So this place is actually 1.9 billion rupiah for 20 years. And you think, wow, 1.9 billion for something so small? Well, again, it's not a heap of money. You are getting a lot less land than you were on that previous property, but you're within walking distance. And let's say, for example, you're never going to ride a motorbike. you know, you're not able to ride a motorbike, and location for you is absolutely critical. Like, it's the number one thing. Garden's not as high up as location. Well, this is the one for you. You have to compromise on something when you're buying a property. You can't have everything. So the compromise here is that you're not going to have as much space, but you are going to be right in the action. So that's something to consider. I think that's a really nice place, really, really beautiful place. It's certainly somewhere I'd be comfortable living. This one also has a management fee included. That includes waste removal and, you know, security fees and that sort of stuff. You know, it's another 1 million a month. You do have to pay a monthly fee in a normal house in a residential area anyway, but nothing like that. You'd normally pay, like I just paid 100,000 to the Banjar for the month. You'll also need to pay, maybe, depending on where you are, about 50,000 a month for rubbish collection. So, you know, not much really. But in some of these managed complexes, because there's a bunch of villas all in the same complex and you've got some management overhead, you've probably got a front desk of some sort, because maybe some people are renting them out as Airbnbs or something like that. There is usually an ongoing management fee as well. Almost like a body corporate fee, really. So yeah, that's interesting as well. I mean, that does appeal to me, and I look at that and I go, you know what, 1.9 billion, 20 years, you know, in 20 years, you know, what am I going to do then? I don't know, probably move back to Australia or something. I don't know, but it's something to consider anyway. Let's talk about the weather. I don't use the weather apps. I just stick my head out the window and look at the sky. And today is bright and sunny. The weather is heating up in Bali. The rains haven't come yet. We've just come out of that cool, dry season, but it is definitely heating up. I was down at the beach this morning and it was really hot. Not a lot of cloud cover. It's dry. We haven't had rain. Well, maybe it's probably rained once in a month. I don't know when it's going to break, but it's heating up for sure. Now let's get on to Q&A. Last week I did a video on the bus system in Bali. If you haven't seen it, make sure you check it out. It's on my channel. And I said that to get around, you really need to download the Mitra Data app on iPhone or Android. And that's true, you do. What people have been telling me is that they aren't able to access the app on the Android store. And it looks like it's been geo-blocked to Indonesia. So you may only be able to download it from the Indonesian version of the Google Play Store. So if you change your settings, I'm not sure how to do it, but if you change your settings, you might be able to download it. I emailed the Ministry of Transport in Indonesia to say, hey, look, this could be a problem for people visiting. And yeah, I'm still waiting for a reply. So I don't know. I don't know how long I'm going to wait, but probably a long time. First of all, Mark from WA says that I've got a big head, and I'll quote, he says, your head's kind of big, but so is mine, so I can live with that. That was in relation to, in my previous video, I wanted to know if my head looked too big, because the problem is this camera, like if I do this, it makes my head look like a big melon, but if I lean back, it looks like I've got like a little pinhead. Like it has this really weird perspective effect. So yeah, thanks Mark for the compliment. Frank wanted to know what career I had prior to, you know, making my life in Indonesia. And up until 2009, I had a typical office job, just like any normal person would have a typical office job. And that came to an end in 2009. And in 2011, I had the opportunity to travel to Indonesia, West Java, to learn Indonesian. That's why I went there. I'd already been to Bali a lot, like everyone else had. I'd learned a little bit of Indonesian, and I'd just started to get into Indonesia a lot more. So because I had some spare time, I went to Bandung, learnt the language, met Susan, and here we are. While I was in Bandung, it was very difficult for me to survive there, really, because you can't work. As a foreigner, it's very difficult to get a work permit for Indonesia. And at that time, I had to really rely on the kindness of Susan, who was working as a language teacher, was writing articles for the national newspaper, Kompas, and magazines as well. And we did travel around a little bit and sort of live that really a low-level life, if you like. We weren't living a life of luxury. We were sort of scraping by, but still having good fun. I went over to Laos for quite a few months to do some work over there at one point. So I did a little bits and pieces, But that was a long time ago now. And since then, I've come up with a good thing that works for me. So I don't live in Indonesia 100% of the time. I'm in and out of the country a lot. And part of that's due to having to work in Australia from time to time. So I do work from time to time in Australia when the need arises. And I'm happy to do that to keep things on an even keel. I don't want to just go full on into Indonesia, and I never have. And a lot of people who live in Bali do the same thing. They will spend large periods of time in Bali and then go off and work. They'll do mining jobs. They'll do fly in, fly out, or they'll do projects or contracts. There's people I know that do seasonal work in their home country, then come back to Bali. There's people that do all sorts of different ways of living. They might have already retired from work, but they want to spend time with the grandkids. So they go back to Australia for 4 months at a time, then back over to here, and they'll have properties in both places. And you can do it. You can do this sort of half-half thing. You need to find something that works for you, that works for your finances, something that works for your personal life, because not everyone's life is totally straightforward. So that's how people do it. They don't always just say, I'm going 100% Bali and see you later, rest of the world. No, they do have some balance. Not everyone is just doing this, hanging out in their villa all day down at the beach and that's it. No, most people have some sort of balance. So if you are considering moving to Bali, just keep in mind that there are a lot of different options for you. Claire asked for information on a reputable tour company for driving, like a taxi tour company for driving around the island and doing day trips and that sort of stuff, and wanted to know whether it was better to just organise it through a hotel or do it yourself, because going through a hotel is clearly going to be more expensive. And my advice is, and the way that I've always done it, is to find a driver on the side of the street. That's just the way I've done it. And I still will do it that way. I'll find a driver on the side of the street, or if I've got one in my phone saved, I'll go with that person because I know that you can negotiate something that's quite reasonable with them. And on that note, I just met a driver on the side of the road the other day. I was just walking down the road and just sat down and had a chat with him because, I don't know, I just felt like having a chat with him, and he was a nice guy by the name of Leo. Yeah, you can see his number there. Just pause the video if you didn't get that, or rewind it. Basically, that guy, really nice guy, I asked him how much he charges for a full day trip. A full day trip is anything between 8 and 12 hours. And of course, the longer the trip, the more he's going to charge. But his standard rate for one whole day is 600,000, which I think is a fair price. It'll take you wherever you want to go. You don't have to pay petrol on top of that or parking. Obviously, if you're going for 12 hours, it's going to cost more than 600,000. Give Leo a call, and he'll definitely give you a good trip. Put his contact in your phone and WhatsApp him, and he can do things like pick you up from the airport. But you'll need to negotiate with him beforehand, because each trip obviously is a little bit different. People like Leo, I haven't used Leo before, but he looked like a nice guy, and that's all you can really go on. People like Leo are really the lifeblood of getting around Bali in a lot of ways for these day trips. Look, these questions are really fantastic. If you've got any more questions like this, please put them in the comments below, because it's these sort of interaction back and forth that really helps spread the word about what's going on in Sanur, what you can do, and gives answers to everyone else about how to do things when you're here in Sanur. So drop a comment below, ask a question. I'll see if I can answer it on camera. I'll always try and answer it in the comments as well. So that's episode 2 of Sanur Sessions in the bag. If you've got any questions, please put a comment below. If you've got any feedback, put a comment below. And if you just, want to say something, put a comment below. Really appreciate this interaction. I mean, I really get something from it, and I hope you get something from it too. That two-way conversation is really important for me. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to keep up to date with all things Sanur. I'll catch you next time.